Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 12. I am Uyaya and coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari insists other nations still believe in Nigeria's potential despite the country's challenges. Vice President Osibajo to represent President Buhari today at Ruto's inauguration in Kenya. Plus, U.S. Justice Department subpoenas more than 30 people in Trump's circle in January 6 probe. We'll bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. First, in our news today is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari says in spite of the security challenges facing Nigeria, other countries, especially in Africa, still believe in the country's immense potential. Buhari made the comment while congratulating Ekiti State Governor Kayode Fayemi on his recent election as president of the Forum of Regions of Africa, FORAF, in his capacity as chairman of Nigeria Governors Forum (NGF) at the election held after a conference in Casablanca region, Morocco. Speaking while hosting a delegation which included Fayemi, Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State, and their Kano State counterpart Abdullahi Umar Ganduje at the State House, Buhari also thanked other countries that queued behind Nigeria to elect one of its citizens as FORAF president, saying it is a good show of brotherhood and solidarity. Away from that, the federal government says Vice President Yemi Osibajo, SAN, will represent Nigeria in Kenya at the East African nation's inauguration of William Ruto as his fifth president, slated for today. This was disclosed in the State House press release issued by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Laula Akande. According to the statement, one of the highlights of the event would be the handing over of instruments of power, including a ceremonial sword and a copy of Kenya's constitution, to the new president by outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta. The statement indicated that Vice President would be accompanied on the trip by the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada, and the Special Advisor to the President on Political Matters, Senator Babafemi Ojudu, adding that Professor Osibajo would return to Abuja after the event. Meanwhile, the federal government has inaugurated a committee to provide concrete measures to safeguard train passengers and railway infrastructure across the country. A statement by the Federal Ministry of Transportation said the 11-man committee was inaugurated by the Permanent Secretary in the ministry, Magdalene Ajani, in Abuja. The committee is to review the use of surveillance equipment along rail lines, set up a special task force on railway lines across the country, as well as develop a comprehensive report on the train attacks along the Abuja-Kaduna road and make recommendations on how to prevent future occurrences of similar attacks. The members of the committee include Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Transport, Magdalene Ajani, Chairman, Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fidet Ohiria, Secretary, Director of Rail Transport Services, Yusuf Adekunle, among others. In another development, aviation unions have given the federal government a 14-day ultimatum over what they say are anti-labor clauses in recently amended aviation bills. The unions say clauses inserted in the bills give the Minister of Aviation overriding powers to direct affairs on issues affecting trade unions in the industry. They asked the federal government to remove them, stressing that the clauses were an attempt to gag and control the unions. But the unions argue that the clauses contradicted international labor laws and amount to a usurpation of the duties of the Ministry of Labor. Reports say to express their grievances and push forward their demands for the expunging of obnoxious essential services clause, form the bills and acts of the aviation agencies, the workers held peaceful protests in some airports in the country. In education, the National Association of Nigerian Students, Southwest Zone, says it will commence protest on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Shagamu interchange over the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The student body, in a statement by its Southwest coordinator, Adegboye Olatunji, disclosed this, saying the protest is organized as a result of the lingering ASU strike. Recall that ASU had embarked on a strike on Monday, February 14, 2022, following what the union tagged as failure of the government to meet lingering demands. Meanwhile, the case between the federal government and ASU, which was filed by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, has been adjourned till Friday. Back here, Akwa Ibom State Governor Dom Emmanuel has reassured the youth of continuous inclusion in the governance of the state throughout his tenure and the next to come. Governor Emmanuel, who stated this when he was received by the youths upon his return from an official engagement outside the state, expressed pleasure accorded him, describing it as a positive ambush by the youths. He commended the continuous cooperation of the youths with his administration in maintaining the peace in the state and urged them to sustain the atmosphere throughout the 35th anniversary celebration. Government House correspondent Jane Uwa reports that the governor, however, reminded them there would be an influx of several guests in the state during the anniversary and assured them of a worthwhile celebration. We move now to Africa, where amid quarrel, debate and anger, the 14th Assembly of Senegal convened for the first time since the July election. Tension was high at the 165th member of parliament where to elect the president. The assembly failed to reach an agreement on electoral process, so much that the deputies of the opposition and the presidential camp came to blows and the police were called. Reports say Amadou Meme Diop, a member of the ruling coalition, who was elected as the vote was boycotted by the main opposition parties, adding that Yewi Asanwi and Waliu Senegal, which failed to name a single candidate. In another development, the International Criminal Court, ICC, has ordered a review of a $30 million reparation package for victims of DR Congo warlord Bosco Ntaganda, citing several errors in the trial chamber's decision. Last year, the Hague-based court awarded $30 million in reparations, including for victims of crimes by child soldiers, rape and sexual slavery. Nicknamed Terminator for his crime in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the early 2000s, Bosco Ntaganda was sentenced to 30 years in prison. In 2019, the ICC trial chamber sixth found him guilty beyond reasonable doubt of 18 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Ituri, Eastern DRC in 2002 to 2003. Reports say the appeals chamber decided to remand several issues for the trial chamber to issue a new reparation order. Still in Africa, the Liberian Senate has confirmed Justice C.A. Nyene as the new Chief Justice. She replaces Francis Kapoor, who retires this month after reaching the constitutional limit of 70 years. Justice Yu becomes the third female Chief Justice in Liberia's 175 years of existence and the first since 2003. She was one of the two female judges currently in the five-member Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Criminal Court Judge Nyami Kwikwi, a man, has been nominated to replace her at the court. Recall that Liberia's previous two female Chief Justices were Frances Alison and Gloria Scott. On the foreign scene, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukrainian forces have seized even more territory from Russia as they continue their counter-offensive. Zelensky said troops have now retaken more than 6,000 square kilometers from Russian control in September in the east and the south. In his address, President Zelensky thanked several of Ukraine's brigades involved in the counter-offensive, describing their fighters as true heroes. He, however, did not reveal which Ukrainian cities and villages had been liberated. Meanwhile, Russia has admitted losing key cities in the northeastern Kharkiv region in what is seen by some military experts as a potential breakthrough in the war. Moscow describes its troop withdrawal from the region in recent days as a regrouping with the aim of focusing on the Luhansk and Donetsk regions in Ukraine's east. On development on the Queen Elizabeth II's burial rites, the Queen's 4 children have been carrying out the traditional vigil of the princes around the coffin of their late mother in St. Giles Cathedral, Edinburgh. The symbolic move sees King Charles III, Princess Anne, Princes Andrew and Edward position themselves at each side of the coffin to stand guard for a short time. King Charles III and other royals followed the Queen's coffin in a procession up to Edinburgh's Royal Mile. Reports say the coffin was then taken to South Giles, St. Giles Cathedral for a service of remembrance before mourners are allowed to pay their respects as thousands of people gathered along the Royal Mile to watch. Still on the foreign scene, top officials from Donald Trump's political fundraising and former campaign operation are among dozens of people in the former president's orbit who received grand jury subpoenas in recent days as the Justice Department intensifies its criminal investigation into January 6, 2021. Among them are Dan Scavino, Trump's former deputy chief of staff, former Trump campaign manager Bill Stepien, and Sean Dolman, who worked for Trump's 2020 presidential campaign as chief financial officer. Reports say more than 30 individuals with connections to Trump have received subpoenas in recent days. The subpoenas seek documents and, in some cases, testimony before a grand jury in Washington, D.C., as the January 6 committee is set to meet in person on Tuesday as it debates whether to invite Trump and Pence to appear. The flurry of subpoenas and other investigative activity came in the days just before the Justice Department began its standard pre-election quiet period, a 60-day period before the midterm election, during which the department generally seeks to avoid taking over investigative action in politically sensitive probes to avoid the appearance of trying to affect the election. Still to come in the news. Akinwumi, Amadu, Mukhtar and Emeruwa, Uchebulam and 6 others cleared for NFF presidential election. To stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news. On our business news, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission RMAFC has recorded a decline in state access to revenue from the mining sector. This was disclosed by the member representing Osun State at the Commission, Oladele Boyega, during a visit to the State Commissioner for Finance, Bola Oyebanji, in Oshobo. Boyega, who was received on behalf of the Commissioner by the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Mineral Resources, Wahab Onyenie, said the team was in Osun for the second phase of the nationwide monitoring of revenue collections while observing mining activities across the state. He frowned at the level of land degradation going on in mining sites across the state, saying there is an urgent need for the sensitization of miners. Still in business, banks have started reducing approval requests for personal travel and business travel allowances to legitimate users. Legitimate users are only expected to access Forex once in 2 quarters. Prior to this new development, the banks had been granting approval to travelers who applied once every quarter. Findings have revealed that the development arose due to the lingering Forex scarcity in the financial system. First Bank has said that the full personal travel allowance and business travel allowance respectively will be disbursed into First Bank user travel cards with all applications in line with regulatory requirements. A member of the Monetary Policy Committee, Professor Mike Obandan, said in his personal statement released by the Central Bank of Nigeria after the last Monetary Policy Committee that access of forex has been a serious challenge. In health, the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria has disclosed that about 500 consultants in various medical fields have left the service of government hospitals for practice abroad due to better conditions of service. The association's president, Dr. Victor Makanjuola, discussed this while fielding questions from journalists shortly after a briefing on the resolution reached at the end of the association's annual general meeting in Benin. He blamed the problems in the nation's health sector on largely unresolved issues by the government, with healthcare workers leaving the shores of the country in droves for more secure climes with better conditions of service. The president, who further lamented the efforts by the government had been inadequate in addressing the challenges in the health sector, stressed that stakeholders could also tap into medical entrepreneurship, adding that to address the problem, the government should increase the retirement age for consultants in hospitals from current 60 years to 70 years. Still in health, the managing dentist of the Choice Dental Hospital, Dr. Sade Akoide, has stressed the importance of regular dental checks. Akoide said this at the unveiling of the hospital's digital dental clinic in Ikeja. She said his focus is on preventive dental care with regular dental checks, which will prevent further damage to the teeth. He also said that the hospital's preventive dentistry services include comprehensive dental examination, digital x-rays, sealant oral cancer screening, and dental cleaning. The expert, who had over 20 years of successful dental practice in the United States of America, said he decided to come back to Nigeria to avail Nigerians the same world-class service so he could reduce the incidence of Nigerians traveling abroad for treatment. In sports, Liverpool's visit to Chelsea and Manchester United's clash with Leeds have been postponed due to policing pressures ahead of the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. Arsenal's trip to Brentford has also been moved forward following extensive consultations with clubs, police, local safety advisory groups, and other relevant authorities. Also, matches in England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland and Wales have been postponed as a mark of respect for the Queen. Arsenal's Europa League clash with PSV Eindhoven has also been called off due to the huge police operation required in London, with the Queen lying in state between Wednesday and her funeral on September 19th. Still in sports, the Nigeria Football Federation (NFF) Electoral Committee has cleared a total of 11 persons to contest for the position of the NFF president at the federation's election scheduled for Friday, 30th of September in Benin City. Also cleared for the exalted post to be vacated by FIFA's council member Amaju Pinnick are former NFF First Vice President Mazi Uchegbulam, Chairman of the FCT Football Association Adam Mohammed, former Nigeria international goalkeeper Peter Said Ida, former Chairman of Kanu Pillars FC, and respected technocrat Abba Yola and UK-based David Doherty. The position for First Vice President of the Federation has also been made open for contests with current Member of Board Felix Anyansi Agu, Obinna Ogba, and Chinedu battling for the post. On our entertainment news, Rakim Hashim, also known as PNB Rock, who was born in 1991, has been killed following a robbery incident in Los Angeles. The American rapper, who was survived by a child, experienced the ugly incident at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles in the presence of his girlfriend. According to Los Angeles Police Department, Captain Kelly Monique said the robbers stormed the restaurant and demanded property from the late rapper. Eventually, the victim got shot multiple times after a verbal exchange. PNB Rock became famous following the release of his 2 albums titled Catch These Vibes and Trap Star turned Pop Star. Meanwhile, rappers Cardi B and Nicki Minaj have taken to the Twitter pages in reaction to the death of the rapper with condolences to his mom and family. Still on entertainment, Fina, Big Brother Nigeria housemate, has emerged head of house for this week. Fina emerged winner of the game after a game of chance, while Biggie instructed housemate to knock down as many bottles as possible within the 2 minutes time frame. So far, she has been the first former level 2 housemate to win the title. Also, Big Brother Nigeria housemate Chomzi has been evicted from the reality show. Ebuka said that Donyin and Elok Swag, who were also evicted, will be guests during the game. He also said they will not compete in the game but will be in the level 3 house until September 18th. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and our YouTube, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 12. I am Uyaniek, and thanks for watching, and do enjoy the rest of your day.